Anyway, Scott, you've seen on my show before, and especially anyone who's been following anything about East Palestine obviously knows who Scott C. Smith is. He's an independent water tester who is very beloved by the locals because he does not work with the EPA, which is key to everything. When we say independent, he really is independent, which is the most important thing when you're dealing with this environmental terrorism, such as Norfolk Southern. So, Scott, why don't you introduce yourself? You have quite a long resume.
Well, a little bit about my background. I've been in over 60 disasters and started this independent testing, in 2006. My life as I know it, my business as I know it, was wiped out in oil-contaminated floodwaters in upstate New York. That's when I realized everything about water testing was flawed. And I began going into disasters to try to help communities not have to go through what I went through. And unfortunately, I realized about undue influence, which you hear me talk about, and corruption, and how billion-dollar corporations can exercise control over federal agencies. And, East Palestine is different than any of the other disasters because of the great community that is standing up. And this is a turning point in this country. It's much, much bigger than just about a community in Ohio. And why is because the world is really paying attention to this. And
Absolutely.
and I think to get right into East Palestine, the community reached out to me over Twitter, or now X, back in February. I was going to come into the community for just 2 times to see what I could do to help. And I've now made 22 trips and 26 rounds of testing.
Wow.
And I know we've got a lot to go over, so I don't want to be redundant with the background. That's all available, on the YouTube website and so on. But on October 18th, Stacey Jo Reinhardt and East Palestine Justice invited me to speak. I spoke to the community, revealed some latest testing results. I was traveling back at the airport on October 19th, and I live in Massachusetts, and I'm at the airport. I get a call from the sheriff that was in my driveway trying to find me, saying, "I have a subpoena for you." And I said, "Okay, I'm driving back." And so I call my personal attorney, and I said to him, the sheriff tells me I'm being subpoenaed in a lawsuit that doesn't involve me, just as an independent. Could Norfolk Southern really be this audacious to try to subpoena me? Sure enough, I got back in my driveway, called the sheriff, and the subpoena was Norfolk Southern. Now, granted, this is after, trying to test side by side with Norfolk Southern, trying to test side by side with Mark Durno and the EPA, and a whole host of other things. They refused. And there was one resident that we were going to go into the Norfolk Southern Command Center with the EPA. And I said, "I'll give you all the details with the permission of this resident, but you show up with your details too." Norfolk Southern and the EPA, nope. They only want a one-way street. So instead, they resorted to trying to use their undue influence with the court system and trying to get me, to basically give up my constitutional rights, reveal all my communications on all the testing, and intimidate me and silence me. But they grossly underestimated me, because I will not be silenced and I will not be intimidated. And just today, they were badgering my attorney, threatening me with all these motions, Now, yeah, short term, they're going to drain my resources a little bit, but long term, truth and justice is going to prevail. And let me just say this. I look forward to cameras in the courtroom. I look forward, and I told my attorney that I want to speak to the judge once the motions are argued. And if you look at the bigger picture here, what is Norfolk Southern scared of? What is the EPA scared of? It appears it's clear to me that the EPA is coordinating with Norfolk Southern. Now, another very important point here, the Government Accountability Project, Leslie Pacey and all there, they reached
Yay,
out.
Leslie.
I became a citizen whistleblower. The EPA is refusing the Freedom of Information Act. I don't report to the government. I don't have to operate. I'm a private citizen. Now, this subpoena is, I'm not involved in the lawsuit. I'm not retained by any attorneys involved in the lawsuit as an expert. It's really out of the ordinary, and its intent appears to be to silence and intimidate me by Norfolk Southern. All their PR people, all their lobbyists, nothing to see here, with Mark Durno and the EPA agreeing with everything they say. And also, I want to say hi, Mark Durno, hi, EPA, public information officers, hi, all attorneys from Norfolk Southern, hi, all you minions at Norfolk Southern that are cowards, that would not face me directly, would not test side by side. And I want to say, if they tested side by side with me and there was a two-way transparent street, if I was doing anything wrong, I'd be the first to admit it. So two big things here. What is the EPA hiding? What is Norfolk Southern hiding? Why don't they want to reveal any of their details? I've already revealed in the public more details than they have. Why is it that the EPA, Norfolk Southern, are just releasing spreadsheets?
Yeah.
And I've, all this scrutiny on Scott Smith, I've asked the media recently, why don't you apply the Scott Smith standard to the EPA and to Norfolk Southern? It's just, yeah. And there's also something else here, Joy. There's opensecrets.org. Anybody can Google that. Norfolk Southern. 1.6 million a year on lobbyists. 85% are ex-government employees. Now, in my driveway with the sheriff in Massachusetts, the attorney that signed the subpoena for Norfolk Southern is Davina Pujara. That's Davina Pujari. Google her. She's an ex-EPA attorney. Remember, I've spoken about the revolving doors in Norfolk Southern. So if you look at about these lobbyists from Norfolk Southern, who are all these ex-government employees that may have sold out the community of East Palestine and their fellow constituents everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
I also have a saying, the saying, cream rises to the top?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when it comes to the EPA, it doesn't appear that cream is allowed to rise to the top, because people that are willing to sell out the communities and their fellow taxpayers rise to the top to follow the corporate narrative and to go work for the corporations. Now, how they look themselves in the mirror every day, I wouldn't want to be them. And most people would probably go away and be intimidated, but I'm not most. And I can tell you, I've been on the ground in front of people. In all my disasters, I've never met the community, people like I've met in the community of East Palestine. There's not one person that's making anything up that I have dealt with. And the vicious attacks coming from the community. Let's talk about, everyone sees the fake Facebook profiles. Why are all these people such cowards? Why don't they be man enough or human enough or woman enough, whatever the expression is, to come out and face directly and have a dialogue? What are they hiding behind? Does the mayor of East Palestine, does he aware of what's going on with these fake Facebook profiles. And I can tell you the Government Accountability Project goes back over 40 years. 3 Mile Island, Edward
Yep.
Snowden, those names might ring a bell.
Yep.
And thank God for their support, because they're allowing me to move forward and fight back on this. But I can tell you, I believe that 95% of the human race are good people. And I am aware there's a potential whistleblower in the East Palestine Police Force. And there are numerous whistleblowers in the EPA that want to come forward. And if they are watching tonight, I encourage you, you can come to me anonymously and I can connect you to the Government Accountability Project. Yeah, because what is going on, and I won't make false allegations, the defamation, the smear campaign against me coming from Mark Durno and the false accusations coming by these fake Facebook profiles. I talked to the attorneys that I'm dealing with, and I'm not even upset, because they're the gifts that keep on giving. They are creating such a trail of evidence that I will be dealing with in the future. And the way they are going after residents in East Palestine. So, for example, if policemen are really being paid $60 an hour, and then these minions from Norfolk Southern, these cowardly minions from Norfolk Southern that sit in that command center and say these things about me, come on, bring it on. Let's go face to face, is what I say. So what they're doing, people have constitutional rights. People are being threatened. They're being charged. I'll be the first to say everyone deserves due process. And if people truly are committing fraud, then they deserve to be prosecuted. But what's going on with these fake Facebook accounts is reprehensible. And I can tell you firsthand, the investigators and the attorneys I am working with, they're closing in on who all these people are. And
absolutely.
I don't oppose this. And if any of the elected officials, if the mayor of East Palestine actually has knowledge of this, it's going to come out. Because this is not about me. This is about the people of East Palestine. And this is about truth and justice. And absolutely. I will not stop until the community of East Palestine gets truth and justice.
And I think that's what people like Mark Durno. Hi, Mark. I know you remember me. And yeah, shout out to Leslie. She gave me a call, and we were talking about my recording. And, that's the thing that people like Mark Durno don't understand. People like me and you are activists. They're not used to that. They think that they can just do and say whatever. But when you're an activist and you have this fury, they don't understand, that we just don't stop. And honestly, if any of you minions are watching, I know the recording I did was totally legal. But if you want me to go to court and we can play pieces of it, I am so there. When and where, I'm there, because I will fight for these people till the day I die, because they are still suffering. And it's because of you, your greed, the capitalist terrorists who are environmentally just sucking these resources dry and ignoring these people. So if you want me to come speak at your hearing to try and use me against, something like that, let's go. Let's play the whole 91 minutes, and let's play Mark Durno's pitiful response when asked by, it's nothing I haven't said before. Bullshit. That's a lie, and it's a lie.
Well, let's talk about Mark Durno a second here, Joy. Accusing me of using dirty shovels and so on. When the EPA, to my knowledge, is not even doing their own testing, what they're doing is, quote, overseeing the paid contractors from Norfolk Southern. And some of their very own videos, they're using plastic bags, they're missing soil. I mean, if I was doing testing like that, I would probably be crucified and I'd probably deserve it. but
Mhm.
they're making all these allegations against me that they're guilty of. And I really look forward to being in court. I mean, I think Norfolk Southern did a great service to the community by trying to silence and intimidate me, because part of the
Mhm.
process, Norfolk Southern's, because I'm a resident in the state of Massachusetts, they're going to have to go into federal court and file these motions. And there will be cameras in the courtroom. And I told
Yeah.
my attorney, you can do a lot of the talking, but I demand to speak to the judge. I still have a lot of faith in the justice system. And when I have been in court, I have, if you lay things out in front of a judge, they are absolutely fair. Now, I don't know. Maybe Norfolk Southern is arrogant enough to think they can use their undue influence over the court and the judge, but I don't think so.
What what do you think, worst case scenario, what do they think is going to happen to you with this subpoena? Like, let's say, okay, you don't give them these samples, all of this media clips they're asking for, all of the documentation they're asking for, all of a sudden that you're just supposed to rapidly provide. Let's say you don't. What exactly are the ramifications that they are seeking?
Well, they're threatening me as of today, or via my attorney, to file a motion to compel. Now, just think about this standard about a private citizen out of my own pocket. I'm not getting grants. I'm not being paid by Norfolk Southern. I did this all out of my own pocket. And I'm going to protect these residents, because Norfolk Southern is suing, harassing, going after these residents. And I look forward. I have got all kinds of evidence, and I have legal recordings. I have identities of the minions. I have all the Facebook posts, and I got to be careful because I know they're watching. I want them to continue with the smear and the defamation and all these fake Facebook posts, because that is going to get the judge's attention big time. And the EPA and Mark Durno are echoing all these other allegations too.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I know one of the things, well, let's talk about the recording too. What was, when you listened to it, what was something that you were like, oh my fucking God, I can't believe he just said that?
Well, I think, in fairness to Mark Durno and the Norfolk Southern, they're not to be underestimated. They're trained very well, and I actually, you got to respect the people on their side. I absolutely respect them, and I'm not going to get personal. I'm not going to smear them. I'm not going to do to them what they're trying to do to me, because I understand it's all about the undue influence in the narrative. We're eventually going to find out who the ex-government employees are
Yeah.
dictating the scripts to the EPA, because I believe that is going on, and we're gonna find out. But I think it's part of a process where you agree with the victims, and then later you discredit them. Because if you
Yeah.
agree with them and you don't think you're being recorded, for example, I don't use residents' names, but I'm familiar with a resident where she was, um, CTEH came in. Actually, it's Candace. She gave me her permission to use her name.
Right.
But, Mark Durno goes and shows, and I'm going to show up with my colleague, and shows up, acts like he's going to listen. Then he shows up and then totally gaslights and blames the victim. Oh, it's all your chemicals. Now, think about that. Think about all the health issues. And I've said this before, all the female issues, the blood. None of this stuff was ubiquitous in the environment before the derailment. You don't need my testing. You don't need anybody's in testing to know what the health symptoms were. So you go in, and the colleagues, and then we have a recent event where you've probably seen the video where Mark Durno goes running off the porch.
Yeah,
So
I was going to bring that up.
Jamie Ray Wallace and Jake Koza. So
Baby.
the expression turnabout's fair play. So that recent video where, so if Mark Durno can say, I'm going to bring my colleague, and the colleague is CTEH, and that's a Norfolk contractor, and they just dismiss him. So Jamie Ray Wallace and Jay Koza say, well, they want to bring a colleague to a meeting with him. That colleague is me. And again, we'll get to this. In a public servant being Mark Durno, instead of engaging and talking to me in person, runs off. I mean, the video speaks for itself. Right. So why won't he engage? Why won't he talk? And then all the public information officers, the PR people and the lobbyists, they are hammering away at the media. And even some of the PR people and lobbyists at Norfolk Southern, aren't all ex-government employees. Some of them are mainstream media people. So they try to
Right.
suppress all this stuff, and they run with this smear campaign. But that's okay. Um, I call it all the gifts that keep on giving, because they're going to be held accountable in a court of law. And thank God for the Government Accountability Project. And I also think
Yes.
you might see some whistleblowers come forward from Norfolk Southern eventually too. And for those
I
people watching, EPA, Norfolk Southern, East Palestine Police Department, East Palestine Firemen, you can come forward anonymously to the Government Accountability Project, and you
Mhm.
will be protected. I
And
believe,
through me,
I
I
believe,
will never tell. I mean, I've been a journalist for almost 7 years. I have congressmen, phone numbers, addresses, and stuff. I keep everything 100% private. You can also reach out to me. I have Signal. Um, I would never tell on anyone, but anything, East Palestine residents often say to me how frustrating it is because people tell them stuff on the down low and then say, well, we know this, but we can't say it. So anything people share, it does help. Yes, it's better if we can share it, but even if we know stuff on the background that can kind of give us those breadcrumbs to lead to something, it still helps. Absolutely. And yeah, everyone's encouraged to, because you're right, it will all come out. There is no question. And we're over 9 months in, and these people are still suffering.
yeah, and some of the biggest cowards here are the fake Facebook profiles harassing the victims in the community. And Norfolk Southern, in a way, is a coward for trying to intimidate me using their undue influence in a court system. And it's just not going to work. And, if the EPA, taxpayer funded, why wouldn't they test side by side with me? I offered to test side by side. The community, everyone could watch. And again, if I'm doing something wrong, I'd be the first to, come on your show and admit it. So what are they afraid of? What are they trying to hide? That's the only conclusion you can make by their behavior. Now, I also want to say, a week ago, last Wednesday, on the 15th of November, I was at the Society of Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry conference in Louisville. And I had a scientific poster presentation with the people collaborating with me. That's on the public record. And the EPA had a booth across from us. And I want to say, the EPA people I talked to, I won't use it, were very respectful, and they don't really agree with what's going on. And I'm getting calls from all over the country about EPA and other government employees that say, Scott, keep doing what you're doing. This has got to change. So I do really believe very much in the goodness of the human race. I believe over 95% of the people are good. Unfortunately, the cream doesn't rise to the top at the EPA, because it's the people that will succumb to the undue influence and sell out their constituents. But that's okay, because East Palestine is a turning point, I believe, for this country to expose all this corruption once and for all.
I think one of the most, I don't know if it was shocking, but infuriating things on the recording I did was when Durno stated that their position supersedes Norfolk Southern's, but that they are negotiating. Why are they negotiating? This should be the EPA tells them do this and they should do it.
Follow the money. That's why they're negotiating. It's quite simple, Joy.
Absolutely.
Follow the money. Follow the
Absolutely.
money. And
But here's what people don't understand. And it's a very simple question, but you can't wrap your mind around it because you're not a sociopath. Why would Norfolk Southern, and we've seen this before with like Chevron and what have you, They would rather go through all this, all the court cases, all the, the poor media attention, things like this, than just pay to buy these people's homes, give them health care, and take care of it immediately. They would rather drag this out over 9 months, keep having people fight to stay in hotels and things like that, and spend so much more money, get so much more bad press and everything like that, instead of just I'm not rectifying it, but trying to do some
Well,
semblance of rectifying it when it first happens.
Joy, that's a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up, and let me address that. So there is a system here. You can call it the industrial complex. You can call it the academic industrial complex. I work with a lot of PhDs and a lot of academics on my team. Great work. But there is a stake here. Norfolk Southern could have saved a lot of money by, let's say, your house in East Palestine is appraised for 100,000. They could have paid 150, 200,000, taking care of medical fees for people that wanted to go, and saved money. But there is a system in place for lobbyists, public relations firms,
Mm-hmm.
even the academic community, to go get government grants. It shouldn't be just me spending my own money, 22 visits and 26 rounds of testing. But if you look at some of these conferences going on, it's who's not invited. People like Dr. Beatrice Gullum that helped the Gulf War vets in the burn pits. And it is about a money-making complex. And you've got to understand, whether it's an academic institution or a nonprofit, there's no such thing as a nonprofit. It's about making money. It is about making money off the backs of victims. And and Norfolk Southern could have saved a lot of money and actually, improve their reputation here. But I'm not defending Norfolk Southern. What I'm about to say, it's a system in this country that needs to be deconstructed and rebuilt. It needs to be blown apart and rebuilt. Because look at these. If you go into CTEH and some of these other contractors, if you work for the EPA, if you work for the Coast Guard, wherever, you know that you can retire in your mid 40s, early 50s. There's a job waiting for you at CTEH for 300 grand a year. So
Yeah.
a lot of these people, and I'm not going to make false allegations, and I'm not going to use names, but some of these people you see at the EPA may be auditioning for their $300,000 a year job with CTEH. We're tracking all of them. We're going to know they're going to end up. I can't get into a lot of it, but in a lot of other disasters, there will be a time that I do use names, and I name people because I don't speculate. So it's part of the process. And I'm not defending Norfolk Southern, but this system, this what I call this broken, corrupted system, is even bigger than a billion-dollar corporation like Norfolk Southern.
Absolutely. And I thought it was very telling when Mark Durno admitted that he lives 45 minutes away and travels back and forth each day. Why, Mark? Explain it. Why? It's these people know that people are sick. And you know what? That gets to the video you posted today that you tagged me in. One of the things, and we'll get to that and explain what it was to people, but one of the women, I believe her name was Deborah, she said the word trauma twice, which I was like, interesting. But why don't you share about that, what that meeting was for?
Yeah, and I really wanted to interact with the community, and I'm asking, because I volunteered to help the community of East Palestine, and I don't give a shit what Norfolk Southern, the EPA, or anybody else has to say, but I care deeply about what every single resident that's been affected by this in East Palestine thinks. That's why I posed the questions on my Facebook post. Do you think it's arrogant and condescending? Now, this CTAC, that's the Society of Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry, I don't think anybody expected me to be there with a poster presentation, and I don't think anybody expected me to take that video and post it, And the question I have for the community, you think it's arrogant and condescending, and they kind of talk about all this stuff, but they really didn't. Misinformation and disinformation. And if you go to the timestamp of 20 minutes and 22 seconds, where Don Brown, who was the number 2 guy at the Ohio EPA, asking Diane Russell about all that, I asked the community and I asked the objective listener, is Diane Russell and the EPA, are they actually guilty of misinformation and disinformation by comparing agriculture to outside of East Palestine to gardens? So, but you see how they try to control the narrative. I think that video is in its entirety. It's not edited. There's no spin. It's very telling about what's going on, and it's in lockstep with the PR lobbyist narrative from Norfolk Southern. And they even have the audacity to talk about being public servants. And that's why I asked, does anybody think that they're, if you listen to that and you look at the EPA, are they public servants or are they servants to Norfolk Southern? I asked the community that question. What do you think? Let's take a survey.
Right. And some of the things that Diane was saying were just so pathetic. The way that she was saying, this is us making buttons. And let me tell you something, East Palestine people love carnivals. What the hell are you talking about? Like, who cares? Like, we know Norfolk Southern is awesome when it comes to, hey, let's give you a carnival and let's put 20 million into building a freaking amphitheater. And yeah, while, you're getting incredibly sick and everything, but you know what? These 4th of July fireworks are incredible. I mean, just the things she was saying about, we had a welcome center and now it's still open by appointment only. It's
Joey, let me tell you why, as messed up as this country is, I believe in the future and I believe in the next generation. I was after that session, I was swarmed at our scientific poster presentation by EPA employees and kids studying for their graduate degrees. They were horrified by that session. Not me saying this, they referred it to as mind control, insulting, and something is very wrong. I thanked everybody walking up to me and I said, thank you. I believe in the future and I'm counting on you and I will do all I can to educate you. So I just want to tell you, the people get what's going on. And I think, the younger generation, 20 to 30, they're not to be underestimated because they see right through the bullshit and they're seeing, and they're not afraid to call people out. So I'm here to support them in any way possible. And there's a lot going on in the background. That's why I'm smiling. So Norfolk Southern and Mark Durno and the EPA are doing great favors. They're the gifts that keep on giving, because the best way to expose the corruption and contamination in the system is sunlight. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. And that's why the court system is going to shine a big, bright light on what's really going on here.
Now, what if, do you have court dates?
No, we don't yet. There's procedures. The attorney's got to go back and forth. They have to, what's called meet and confer, and then there's motion. So I can't wait. I mean, I would love to get into court. I mean, I would go into court on Thanksgiving if the court would open and Norfolk and my attorney would agree. I can't wait to get in front of the judge. I can't wait for cameras in the courtroom. I can't wait to talk about all this. And I want to thank residents in East Palestine for all the mounting evidence I am getting, because the fake Facebook profiles, the minions in Norfolk Southern, the cowards, the minion cowards at Norfolk Southern, I cannot wait to sit across a table and depose you under oath at some point. And the world is going to see you for what you are. So keep going, keep making all these crazy allegations, keep going with the smear and defamation.
Absolutely. And the thing about these Facebook profiles is, even, people who haven't been to East Palestine, they may not understand just how small that community is. Because, like before, you're like Candace. You don't have to say a last name. We all know who Candace is. We all know who Jamie is, Christina is. We all know these people because that's how tight that community is. So when you see these people who say they're in East Palestine, Ohio, and nobody knows who they are by name or photo, that's a fake account.
Well, I've been talking to attorneys, so think about this. If it is proven true, if East Palestine police officers, and again, just like the EPA, the police, I'm a big supporter of EPA employees and police officers all over the country. I believe 95% are all good human beings doing the right thing. But can you imagine if it is true that these police officers being paid $60 an hour are using private information, waltzing in to the prosecutor and going after these people? Now, again, if someone committed fraud, they should see justice. But everyone who's charged is entitled to due process. So and what I'm hearing from attorneys, if the police officers are truly involved in this, that is a big deal. And they are going to have some serious legal problems.
So do you have tangibles, or is this rumors, or like that they're involved?
Well, I want to say, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but I will say that I'm starting to see evidence beyond just circumstantial and again, I got to be really careful because some of these other whistleblowers that are talking about coming forward, they may not be as crazy as I am to reveal their identities and come out, and they need to be protected because the real heroes in this are going to be a whistleblower from the police force that comes forward, even anonymously, whistleblowers from the EPA that come forward anonymously, whistleblowers there are potential whistleblowers within Norfolk Southern that, I gotta be careful what I say. And again, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. You follow the evidence, you follow the facts. But then again, you got the EPA not revealing things, not wanting to test side by side. I mean, come on, why couldn't these cowards, did they have to hide behind a fake Facebook profile? Why can't they reveal themselves? If they're not doing anything wrong, why can't they reveal themselves?
And you're so proud in attacking people. And I have seen that one group, 6.0, whatever the heck it's called. It is absolutely disgusting. They're attacking Chrissy, like the sweetest, kindest, most wonderful person in the world. They're attacking her. Like,
that one of the things that's laughable, I've been accused of making up videos too. That video where the CTEH contractor comes out and demands to know who I am.
Oh,
that was not a made up video. That's very easy to prove. I have that, and I can't wait to get in front of the judge with this one. I cannot wait to talk about this publicly. And that's something that's very easy to prove. So again, I'm not complaining about the minions and these because they are giving us great evidence with these allegations. There's in some ways they're going to make our jobs to get truth and justice out easier.
Absolutely. What else do you want to say about what's going on currently in East Palestine? When was the last time you were there? It was recent.
Well, it was on October 18th.
That's right. Okay.
And again, I revealed that my latest summary data, which is public, and of all my testing to date, 30% show elevated dioxins, specifically 70% did not. So if Norfolk Southern and the EPA would have worked with me side by side, this is not all bad news, because 70% of these test results were within background, and background meaning communities where that have not been impacted by a derailment or some other event. And so when they attack me on all this, they're kind of attacking this data that says 70% of my testing is within background. If you think about it, they're kind
Right.
of attacking
True.
themselves. And if they're going to attack all my testing using Eurofin's third-party data testing, then they're kind of attacking their own methods and procedures. So some of this stuff just doesn't make logical sense to me, because they're kind of really undermining their own narrative with some of these attacks.
Yeah, that's a really great point. That is a really great point. And when you go to the judge and you talk about, how the samples are still showing contamination, please bring the clip of when Durno says that the water is completely safe. Because
There's so much evidence being gathered. And by the way, when motions get filed, it will be public, and I'll come back on and make them public, and we will be countering with everything. But if you think about the subpoena from Norfolk to intimidate, and it's being led by an ex-EPA woman, again, Davina Pujara, look her up. She's claimed she believes in environmental justice and all these things. So how is it that she can go forward with all this? And the ex-EPA attorney, is she talking to Mark Durno? Is she talking to the EPA? What's really going on here? Do you think that Norfolk Southern, if they were subpoenaed, would ever reveal their private communications to residents? Would they reveal their talking to media? You think about some of the overreaching things in that subpoena. It's absolutely outrageous. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm not involved. I'm a complete third party. So that says it all right there. What are they scared of? If you listen to Mark Durno and the EPA, and I'm using dirty shovels, I don't know what I'm doing, and a whole list of other things. My data is irrelevant compared. Well, so then why are they subpoenaing me? They must be worried about something. Is it because you can't find what you don't look for? Because I believe when I get questions from the media, it's not that I disagree with EPA testing. I'm just testing where they refuse to test, like on Taggart Street. And the 70% of my data that's within background, I think some of those locations may be in the EPA. The EPA testing is a misnomer. EPA, I believe, is overseeing
right.
Norfolk Southern contractors. Now, let's go back to Madeline Beal and our friend Diane Russell at the Misinformation and Disinformation. Question for the community and everyone watching. Is it misinformation and disinformation for the EPA to claim they're doing testing when it's not their testing, it's a contractor, and they're, quote, overseeing it? You tell me.
Yep, absolutely. And are these, because it's so hard to get concise answers to this. Are the actual people who are being contracted to do these tests, are those names available? Because I always come up with companies, but I'm not really coming up with the names of people who are doing those
That's a
actual
great
tests.
point, Joy. So Norfolk Southern thinks they can track me down in my driveway with their attorneys. I think all these other people doing testing should be tracked down in their driveways too. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and
I
we're
mean,
going to ask for the names of these people. So I didn't start this. Norfolk Southern started this fight with me, and I take great pride in it, and I'm going to fight to the death if I have to for the community of East Palestine.
and they definitely know it and respect it. They all think the world of you, and it's so important what you're doing. It's bullshit. You should have to do this. But there's something about that community. You are so right. The times I've been there, they're just my family. They're just a wonderful community. They have such fight in them, and that they're hurting, and you don't want to see them continue to go through this, and that shit, Norfolk train derailed just freaking 2 days ago. They derail all the time.
Yeah, and the thing that I get upset the most about is the gaslighting by the Norfolk Southern contractors and the EPA and Mark Durno, act like you listen to them, and then show up and dismiss them, and then you blame the victim, you
Mhm.
know? And it's horrible what's going on. It's it really is almost like blaming the rape victim for the rape.
Absolutely.
That's the outrage, because you got people who are really suffering now. So if it was all their chemicals in their basement, why didn't they ever get sick before the derailment?
Isn't that weird? Well, in fairness, some of them are eating meat and eating peppers and onions. Mark said that that could be what it is. You should take vitamins, people. Incredible. Well, I've heard he's not looking so hot. And he's been so
Well, I don't
I'm not
comment.
saying who
I'm not,
told me that, but
I don't.
I've heard he's talking about getting liking some drinks lately, that he's extra
Well,
stressed
you know what? Honestly, I think down deep, I give everybody a chance to do the right thing, and I give Mark Durno the chance to do the right thing. He could easily come forward publicly and make some corrections. Um, that's
out.
what
Don't
I.
you think it's too little too late though?
Well, I think being a human being, it's never too little, too late, because whether it's Mark Durno, the EPA, or whistleblowers, or somebody from CTEH, that would go a long way in the community of East Palestine for them to say, I was wrong. I'm sorry for gaslighting you. I'm sorry for blaming the victims. I hear you. And even think about, I think President Joe Biden, if I read correctly, uh, unfortunately, his son, Beau Biden, that died of a brain tumor and cancer, I believe our very own president blamed the burn pits in Iraq and the wars. And you go into our very same vets and Dr. Beatrice Golem and what we call about synergistic toxicity, the way all these chemicals blend. And the way I explain that is, like, everyone can understand migraines and headaches. Everyone over time to time has taken, aspirin blended with caffeine that helps a lot of people. But if you take just aspirin or just caffeine, that's what I mean. That's synergistic chemical reaction in a good way. But when you think about these dioxins, these VOCs, and these SVOCs, and all these other things, there are no standards for these chemical mixtures. That is a fact. That is a science. That is an absolute fact. And is it disinformation, misinformation for the EPA to cite a singular exposure to a singular chemical? I mean, that's the amazing thing that strikes me, is the arrogance of the EPA to put out that presentation on misinformation and disinformation. And then
Oh
they
my
go out and
god.
cite a singular exposure to a singular chemical when you've got all these chemical combinations, and you've got, all these drug interactions, and what happened to our vets. The vets were told it's in your head, it's psychosomatic, and there's a reason they got all sick. And not everybody was sick. And unfortunately, Norfolk Southern and their PR people and and everything going on, they did a very good job at dividing the community. And
He
that's one
did.
of the most sad, tragic things that I've seen. Because just like in the Gulf of Mexico, 30 to 40% of the people got really sick. The rest did not. So if you're not feeling symptoms, that doesn't mean that somebody that is having symptoms is making it up, and vice versa if you don't. And unfortunately, with the PR narrative, it's by design. And the PR and the lobbyists in Norfolk Southern, they are not to be underestimated. They are very good at what they do.
Yes. Absolutely. And they have all the money in the world. Um so yeah, everyone go to Open Secrets. I use that all the time. It's an incredible website. Um
Oh, and let me just jump in here. But they
uh,
have all the money in the world. But on the other end of that is an ex-government employee that's accepting that money. In
yeah,
my mind, that ex-government employee that's accepting that money and selling people out is worse than the railroad. And I'm on a
absolutely.
mission to expose all those people.
And you know what? That's something else I wanted to bring up. In that video you posted today, the misinformation, disinformation, we're using semantics trying to confuse people type thing they did. One of the things is several times towards the end, Diane said stakeholders, like at least 3 times. And I'm like, uh, you're talking about public servants, you're doing public service, and but yet you keep talking about stakeholders. She's like, we've met with the stakeholders. And then she said it numerous other times, like, why is that a brag? Why is that even a thing?
See, what I believe is that if Diane Russell and Mark Durno spent a couple days with me with their nose in the soil, going in the creeks, doing the testing, and I'm not complaining. I've had my nose cauterized, never had bloody noses. I've had chemical pneumonia symptoms, and I volunteer to do this. I'm not complaining at all, but I know for a fact that no one's making it up. And I just got some blood results back that show me having some other issues, but I'm going to be fine. But my point is, I don't even need my testing results, and what I've experienced in testing the soil and going into homes, and they brag about their community center and making buttons. Well, the hell with all that. Why don't they just go door to door? Oh, some of people from the CDC did go door to door and they got sick, right?
Yep. Or some of the community did, and they were threatened with getting fined because even though they weren't soliciting or asking for money or anything like that, you cannot step on someone's doorstep with information. It's God, it's crazy. And things are getting worse as far as health concerns. One of the things, if you listen to the recording, and you guys, that's on my channel if you want to look at it. And Jenna's in the comments. She's the other person in the meeting who you'll hear on the recording. One of the other things that's so startling is, you know, on the recording over and over, Mark Durno talks about the NIH, that healthcare, group is going to come and they're going to talk with all the residents and they're going to compile information. And he says it like a couple dozen times during the damn thing. He's like, well, when the NIH comes, and that's going to be on the NIH, and oh, they're still picking who's going to come, and it's going to happen shortly, and so and so. Well, 2 months later, it was announced they're never coming. They're going to do some things virtually. So all that was just bullshit and posturing. So I was demanding give people health care, and he's like, well, NIH is coming in, but they're never coming anyway. So what are some of the symptoms?
You know what I think they should do with these academics that get grants, and I think they do good work? There ought to be a requirement that if you get a taxpayer funded grant or any other grant, that you're required to set up in the town and have meetings in the town, that you can't take the grant from your ivory tower to make money.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
That might change people's perceptions very quickly. Hell, the second time I went to East Palestine, I lost a damn tooth. I I mean, it's kind of funny now, but I was violently ill, and my I couldn't believe I actually lost a tooth, and it was fine, never bothered me, nothing. And then it was loose. And then I was talking to other people in East Palestine who had lost teeth. And I'm just like, holy shit. Like, it was the weirdest thing. And I was vomiting, I was lightheaded, I actually hallucinated. Jenna also got sick. It's crazy. And it's like, to tell me it's something else. I'm 44 years old. None of that has ever happened to me from going somewhere. So no, you're not going to tell me it's, all in my head or, something like that. Like, nobody creates that in their head. It's not a self-fulfilled prophecy that I want to, be sick. So, What I know, a lot of people are still getting sick. Last time you were there, how did the community seem? Are more and more people getting sick? Are people kind of dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been concerned because it seems like every time I go back, people are not recovering,
Yeah.
and some of the people are getting sicker and sicker. But Joy, before we go, are there any comments or questions you see from any of the people viewing this?
Matt, do you want to put anything on the screen? Matt, do you have any comments there you want to put on the screen for? Oh, okay. What's that say?
Hey, sorry, I've been putting the comments up as the interview has been going on. There's
Oh,
no
okay.
major questions or anything in here,
Okay.
but
Do you want
I
to
just
share some of the comments?
yeah, let's see. EPA lies.
That had to be Jenna.
That's a classic Jenna comment. Norfolk Southern is petty as fuck, which we've seen. We're speaking out. It was, hey, Mark Durno.
Yeah, Scott, I don't know if you saw at the beginning of the recording, I showed my shirt. Jenna made that. It said no fucks given with Norfolk Southern symbol.
I have one of those shirts too.
Yeah.
I'll read my own comment. I think they know how bad things really are, and they're just lying to us, and we just have to prove it. So thank you, Scott, for doing that.
Hell yeah. Scott, so this is conjecture, but I'm curious. Do you think that things would be different if Mark Durno resigned?
No, not at all. Not at all. Nothing would be different.
How do you think that Deborah Shore is holding up her end of what she needs to do?
Oh, she's following the script perfectly. Yeah. But Deborah Shore is doing a great job following the script she's given, in the marching orders from the PR and the lobbyists, and I know how the system works. More on that. I can't get into the details right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're definitely gonna have you back anytime. What would you like to leave the viewers with? Be it a message about what you're personally going on or dealing with, or if you want people to, keep in mind about East Palestine, Ohio. What do you want to leave the viewers with?
I would say, don't give up. I've been there. I've had my own breakdowns on the floor. Don't give up, because this is a turning point. I've never been so as difficult and as challenging as this is. I've never been so optimistic about the future. And East Palestine is a turning point in this country. Don't give up. There's great people here. Don't let it get you down. Just look at it this way. When these fake Facebook profiles attack you, they're gifts that just keep on giving, and they're cowards. All those minions at Norfolk Southern in the command center that like to spew all the stuff, they're cowards. Their day's coming. Their day's coming. That I'll guarantee.
Absolutely. And I'm here for it. I will be there with popcorn. I can't wait to get back to East Palestine, especially if it's for some trials. Ooh, I cannot wait. Please leave give your info if someone wants to reach out, like your Facebook, your Twitter, your email.
Yeah, Facebook and Twitter's at Water Warrior One, and I'm on Facebook. They can just find you, and they'll see us linked together and send me a private message. And I protect people's privacy at all costs. Period.
Awesome.
Whatever I have to do, and I only talk about people publicly that ask me to or give permission.
Well, thank you so much for joining. And again, you are welcome anytime. And thank you so much for what you continue to do for the community. I know how much it means to them. And as someone on the outside looking in, it means a lot to me as well. And other people who have been following, their stories. So keep on keeping on, and we are right behind you.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody listening.
You too. Tune in tomorrow night, you guys, 9 p.m. Eastern. Elias Cepeda will be back. Thank you guys so much. Smash the like button, smash subscribe, smash share, all these things. This was an incredibly important show. He has not disclosed any of this stuff till now. So this wasn't an exclusive, and it's a lot, and he's really going through it, and it's for all the right reasons. So yeah, kick ass, Scott. If you see anything on Facebook, in any Facebook groups, please take screenshots. You can send them to me, text them to me, whatever. But we are keeping records. And I may be doing something with them on the back end, possibly, maybe.